shows the inside of a courtroom with George Coe as Judge George Coe, Phil Hartman as Public Defender Pete Dender, and George Michael is witness Michael David. Coe looks at Hartman and says, "Okay, counsel, it is now time for the David cross-examination." Hartman: Aspiring towards an acting career, David Cross took a road trip to Los Angeles in the summer of 1985. Although this did not significantly further his acting career. In Boston, Cross began to perform stand-up more regularly. From the mid-1980s to the early 90s, Boston had a booming comedy scene, although Cross did not fit the type of acts being booked most of the time. He recalls that it was a loud, dumb, pandering, racist, homophobic type scene. Coe: No, not an examination of the comedian David Cross. Your turn to cross-examine the witness, Michael David. George Michael: It's Michael Sarah, David. Coe: Excuse me? Michael: My middle name is Sarah. My name's Michael Sarah David. Hartman: And finally, George Michael was able to use the name of the actor who had always used his name. Coe: Counsel, you are not Ron Howard, and this is not Arrested Development. If anything, you'd be Harry Winkler's attorney character. Hartman: Him? I mean, I'm here in a $4,000 suit. Come on. Coe: Really? You'd rather be Job then? Hartman: Well, who else would I want to be if I'm going to be wearing a $5,000 suit? Come on. Shows Jessica Walter as an opposing attorney who says, "Objection, Your Honor. This back and forth has nothing to do with my client, Mr. F." Shows Gilda Radner sitting at a counsel table who says, "Mr. F." Hartman walks over towards Walter and says, "Why, Your Honor, this has everything to do with that mentally retired female lifeguard sleeping on the job." As Hartman grabs Walter's shoulders, she yells, "No touching!" Shows Norm MacDonald as a bailiff in the corner of the courtroom who says, "That's right, you know. No touching." Coe bangs the gavel. "No touching!" Hartman: "Yeesh, one moment, Your Honor." Hartman walks over to the counsel table where Bernard McGurk is sitting as a client and says, "So what do you think so far? Pretty satisfied with my performance, I'm sure." McGurk: "I've made a huge mistake." Hartman turns to Coe and says, "No further questions, Your Honor." Coe: "Redirect?" Walter: "No, Your Honor." Coe: "Okay, call your next witness." Walter: "Plaintiff's call Franklin, Your Honor." As George Michael leaves, Judy Tenuta approaches the witness stand with the puppet Franklin on her right arm. Walter: "Please state your name and spell your last name for the record." Coe: "Actually, we've had a lot of issues with that lately. Just state your name, please. The court reporter does not lose the ability to recognize words just because it happens to be a last name." Tenuta: "The name's Franklin Delano Booth, you old hag." Walter: "Objection, Your Honor. This crude little puppet wants to get thrown in the trash." Coe: "He's your witness." Walter: "Franklin, what were you doing at the Newport Beach? Tenuta: "Why, I was buying some bananas from a hot little biscuit at the banana stand." Walter: "I'm sorry, did you just call the banana stand worker a hot little biscuit?" Tenuta: "Maybe." Walter: "Right, maybe. Anyway, why were you doing so?" Tenuta: "Are you kidding, bitch? Because there's always money in the banana stand." Walter: "And what did you see while you were there?" Gilbert Gottfried enters the courtroom and yells, "Onion!" Coe bangs the gavel and yells, "Order! Order!" Gottfried: "Onion!" John Belushi enters the courtroom as attorney Bob Loblaw and says, "My apologies, Your Honor. My client here was just saying hello." Coe, your trial is not starting until this afternoon. Please leave the courtroom. Belushi, Your Honor, if you wouldn't mind, we'd like to stay in the courtroom. There's a loose seal causing a ruckus in the hallway. Coe, that's no way to refer to Liza Minnelli, but you can stay in the gallery if you remain quiet. Witness, please answer the question. Tenuta, I ain't answering any more questions, honky. Now come over here, counsel, and let me give you some brown sugar. Walter, I need a new Franklin. Tenuta throws Franklin on the floor, gets out of the witness stand, and says, You need a new Franklin, huh? Well, then say goodbye to these. Tenuta flashes the courtroom. Walter, Your Honor, the plaintiff's called Gene Parmesan to proceed as Franklin. Chris Farley enters the courtroom, sits at the witness stand, and places Franklin on his right arm. Walter, so, Franklin, what did you observe at the Newport Beach? Farley, well, after I got my banana, or maybe it was before maybe gave me my banana, I saw a high-flying woman in a tree, and I asked her what she was doing, and she said Carl Weathers had asked her to go up there to save the tree and would help her husband's movie career. Walter, and what happened next? Farley, well, her husband, I believe it was her husband, came up running to me stark naked. Hartman, objection, Your Honor. Tobias is never nude. Your Honor? Coe's head emerges from under the bench, and he says, Sustained. Sorry about that, folks. I think I just blew myself. Please proceed. Farley, come to think of it, it wasn't her husband, but it was her brother. He was stark naked and running around talking about the Army and his mother. And I said, listen, Buster Brown. And then he told me it was actually Buster Bluth. So I said, listen, Buster Bluth, we don't need people running around naked on our Newport beaches. Walter, and then what did you see? Farley, I saw the defendant, Mr. McGurk, rip Buster's prosthetic arm off his body and throw it into the ocean. I believe he said that's why you don't run around naked. Hartman, objection, Your Honor. That sort of behavior would only come from a one J. Walter Weatherman. Steve Ryan, with one arm as J. Walter Weatherman, explodes through the ceiling, falling to the floor. He hands Hartman a note and runs off. Coe, what does the note say, counsel? Hartman, it says that's why you always leave a note. On the next Arrested Development, Dead from the Earth, We're Not Alive. It's Saturday Not Alive, starring John Belushi, Chris Farley, Bill Hartman, Jan Hooks, Norm MacDonald, Gilda Radner, Denitra Vance, and many other special deceased contributors. Musical guest, the band, and your host, Jessica Walter. Everybody, Jessica Walter. Applause, applause, applause. Walter. Thank you, thank you. We got all the Arrested Development gags out of the way, so here in my monologue we could just focus on my career, which included over 170 film, stage, and television productions, including my role as a psychotic and obsessed fan of a local disc jockey in the 1971 Clint Eastwood film, Play Misty for Me, as well as providing the voice of Mallory Archer in the animated series Archer. Applause, applause, applause. Shows Gilda Radner in the audience, who raises her hand. Walter. Yes, the brunette who looks like she enjoys to eat. Radner. Okay. Anyway, you said you got all the Arrested Development gags out of the way, but I couldn't help but notice. You didn't even mention Marta? Walter. Who's Marta again? Radner. She was the maid that formed a love triangle between Michael and Job. Walter, for God's sake, enough with that show. Everything they do is so dramatic and flamboyant. It just makes me want to set myself on fire. Radner, so you're not going to comment on Marta's love for both Michael and Job? Walter, I don't even remember this character, but my guess, like Lucille too, she's just trying to show she's closer to my children than I am. But the joke's on her because she doesn't know how little I care for Job. The only one I liked was Buster, but they don't appreciate him. It's his glasses. They make him look like a lizard. Plus he's self-conscious. Radner, so you didn't like Lindsay? Walter, what can I say? She thinks I'm too critical. That's another fault of hers. Anyway, I have a monologue to finish here. Maybe we can talk about this more another time. Radner, well, I have the afternoon free. Walter, really? Did nothing cancel? No offense, sweetie, but I was just being polite. I don't think you're worth my time. Radner, wow, talk about harsh criticism. Walter, I don't criticize you, and if you're worried about criticism, sometimes a diet is the best defense. Okay, folks, we have a great show tonight. Chris Farley gets up in the audience and yells, "You didn't even mention it's an illusion, Michael!" Walter, if that's a veiled criticism about me, I won't hear it and I won't respond to it. Like I was saying, we have a great show tonight. Rick Danko, Levon Helm, Richard Manuel, Stan Stazelt, and Richard Bell from the band are here. So join me up on Cripple Creek to take a load off Fanny and put the load right on me. We'll be right back.